Hello, and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts 2 Heartless ranking. Last time we ranked every Heartless up to Timeless River and their full lineage from future games. Today, we're picking up where we left off. While I recommend checking out the first part, here's a quick rundown of the rankings. D tier and below are failures, and C tier and above are a passing grade, but the higher tiers do more than merely pass. I consider both design and gameplay, but give an advantage to Heartless with story significance and appropriate Disney World theming. Thus far, the Heartless of Kingdom Hearts 2 have been a mixed bag. There are a lot of boring designs filling out low C tier, a decent contingent of interesting Heartless hanging out in B tier, and barely any enemies inhabiting either extreme. As we head into the back half of Kingdom Hearts 2, there may yet be some Heartless that strive for S tier status. Let's begin.
Pitiful Heartless, mindlessly collecting hearts.
To get things started, let's talk about Heartless clans introduced in the KHUX mid-game. The cannon gun is up first, and it definitely has the mid part on lock. Its commonplace and underwhelming design, though, belies an interesting combatant. The cannon gun fills a support-type role that breaks up your regularly scheduled X-mashing. It stays in the back of the Heartless ranks and makes ranged attacks. These mortar shots are clearly telegraphed by an aiming reticle at Sora's feet, so you're aware of the danger and can strategize whether to outrun the cannon shots or take out the Heartless at the source. And even though the design feels rather lackluster, it does make sense for a cannon-based Heartless to appear in the pirate's world. That, and the way it spins its eyes when it's aiming, is really cute to me. It's worth noting that the cannon gun was called the Lil Cannon in Days, perhaps to differentiate it from that game's Jumbo Cannon, but it reverted to the cannon gun moniker in the Key games. Every time I revisit this script, I find myself becoming more fond of this enemy's unique combat role, so I'll surprise myself by giving it a spot in low B tier. I don't know what's gotten into me, but I kinda like the camo cannon. Is its moveset identical to the cannon gun? Yes, but this Cavern of Remembrance recolor just strikes my fancy for some reason. It has immunities to fire and thunder unlike its ordinary counterpart, and I don't mind the new set of clothes. I find it amusing that the camo cannon appears in massive numbers, 21 in total, and the ranged attacks are decently effective when you're caught up fighting the beefier post-game enemies. For reasons I can't quite explain, high C tier. Days had a few variants of the cannon gun, all native to Olympus Coliseum. The ice cannon has a chance of freezing Roxas instead of burning him, while the jumbo cannon has supersized hitboxes. Neither of these are bad Heartless, and I think the more limited movement of Days makes the range attacks more dangerous than in KH2. High C tier for both. The Switch launcher is one of those oddball Days Heartless like the Deserter or Living Pod that apply an interesting gimmick to a face-in-the-crowd Heartless sibling. The Switch launcher's gimmick is that getting hit by its attacks makes it and Roxas swap positions. If you're trying to run away and heal, then too bad, the Switch launcher's gonna put you right back in the pit with the snowy crystals, who are pretty dangerous at close range. I find the gimmick quite endearing, and the clear telegraphing makes it more effective than the Grey Caprice, the only other Heartless with the ability to teleport Roxas. The only bad part about the Switch launcher is that you barely get to see it. It only appears in the third round of the Coliseum games in Mission 73, and never again. I guess the rarity makes it all the more special. Actually, it's even more special than that, since it bears the title of the only Heartless to not appear in Mission Mode. The Coliseum Cups were rebalanced for Mission Mode, which included the removal of the only Switch launcher spawn in the game. In the end, the Switch launcher is just one of those out-there Heartless concepts that makes me smile, and its rarity only adds to its mystique. High A tier. The Bookmaster is the Kingdom Hearts 2 equivalent of the Wizard. Like the Wizard, it flies around and casts Fire, Blizzard, and Thunder. Like the Wizard, it has a small chance to drop its spellcasting focus as a party member weapon. Like the Wizard, it is immune to magic damage, although the Bookmaster can't heal from the absorption. Even the robes bear a striking resemblance to the KH1 spellcaster, albeit more so in the original color palette. For some variety, the Bookmaster also has two basic melee attacks to its name. Overall, it's a solid magic-based enemy and a worthy successor to the Heartless of Hollow Bastion. Like the Wizard, low B tier. The Rune Master is among the better Cavern of Remembrance clones. It doesn't have any new moves, but its book blocks front-facing attacks. Since it carries over the magic immunities of the Bookmaster, the only way to deal damage outside of dry forms is to approach from behind. Its HP bar is small enough that the gimmick doesn't overstay its welcome. Curiously, the Rune Master can be found in the files of Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, but it doesn't appear in the enemy pool of any songs in the final game. There are no other Final Mix exclusive Heartless in the game, and the regular Bookmaster already makes an appearance, so I'm not sure what the plan for the enemy would have been. Anyway, high C tier. One of the greatest Heartless introduced in Days is the Barrier Master. It's another spellcaster, yes, but a defensive spellcaster. Its only move is to cast Protect on its allies, encasing them in an impenetrable shield. You have to track down and defeat the Barrier Master to remove the protection, which creates an interesting challenge when its invincible teammates are trying to maul you. The Barrier Master typically stays on the outskirts of the battlefield, but it's not a complete pushover. It can knock away attacks with its book and has an incredibly high defense stat, so you have to beat it at its own game by casting spells, as it takes increased damage from every element. I love Heartless that work together as a group, and the Barrier Master makes any encounter it's in more interesting. A tier. I have very little to say about the False Master. It was introduced in the final days of Union Cross, March 2020. According to the journal entry, it would slowly drain the player's strength, completely overriding it when its HP reached 0. Nowadays, though, all we're left with is a pretty underwhelming recolor. Low C tier. I quite like the Morningstar. It's a decently strong mid to late game Heartless, and it can provide a decent challenge in a group. It has a fun and silly reaction command that, while powerful, is relatively uncommon until they're at low health, meaning that the fight isn't invalidated like with some other RCs. The Morningstar has a memorable design, and while I don't have anything against the original version, this is a rare instance where I find the final mix color palette vastly superior to the original. I like how the colors complement the Ravine Trail. This is also a rare case of a Heartless changing colors for the key games, swapping out the blues, greens, and purples for bronze and gold, which I think looks great. The only other time I can remember this happening is with the Search Ghost, but that wasn't a complete overhaul like the Morningstar was. I also have to give a quick dishonorable mention to the Morningstar's appearance in Kingdom Hearts Magical Puzzle Clash, where it's the most prolonged and frustrating encounter in a game that's already a slog to get through. In any event, the Morningstar is a formidable opponent that deserves its spot in B tier. The Spiked Crawler has a really interesting role in the story. It only appears in Mission 82. Roxas is feeling bad that day, so his level is halved. As the target enemy, the Spiked Crawler looks like it could pose a challenge, but Shion cuts the battle short with a cinematic finishing blow. This battle serves as a great indication of how Shion is siphoning Roxas' power. Because the fight ends prematurely, you can only kill the Spiked Crawler in mission mode, but there's no reward for doing so. As for the fight itself, I greatly dislike fighting the Morningstar variants in Days, since they have extremely high resistances across the board and altogether too much HP. Still, the integration with the narrative is enough to earn the Spiked Crawler a spot in low B tier. The same grace cannot be extended to the Scorching Sphere. Endemic to Mission 84, this Heartless is divorced from all story content, leaving only the irritating battle to judge it by. It loves to spin around for long stretches of time, which can be stopped by Blizzard magic or by waiting for it to hit an obstacle. From there, it only has one attack, a leap with a shockwave. The Scorching Sphere is a bothersome time sink, but at least the barrels in the arena give some way to help whittle down its hefty defenses. D tier. The Gummy Hammer was introduced during the first anniversary of Kingdom Hearts Key. It's cute enough, and it's neat to have an ordinary enemy with a gummy block aesthetic. That said, the Gummy Hammer appears in way too many quests and worlds, so the novelty wears off and it ultimately blends together with the other early game enemies. C tier. The Minute Bomb is an enemy that I respect more than I enjoy. Its single headbutt attack is negligible, but its true purpose is to self-destruct. Once the Minute Bomb takes damage, it will initiate a 9-second countdown. If you use the dodge roll reaction command when there are 2 to 3 seconds remaining, it will explode and hurt other Heartless. Otherwise, it will still explode, but it won't have friendly fire and won't drop items or experience points. I appreciate that this Heartless tries to do something interesting, but I always found it to be a bit annoying and not very impactful. I actually prefer the Heartless in Days, where the countdown is shorter and every explosion deals AoE damage to other enemies. You can also detonate it instantly with fire magic, which is an appreciated addition. As an aside, the Japanese pronunciation indicates that it's definitely the Minute Bomb and not the Minute Bomb, just to put that discussion to rest. Low B tier. The Skater Bomb is a Minute Bomb that deals ice damage instead of fire damage. That's about it. Sometimes Days Heartless are like that. Low C tier. The Storm Bomb is an improvement. It only appears in 2 late game missions in Twilight Town, the one where you chase Riku in the boss rush, and its special element is Arrow. The Storm Bomb creates a vortex that sucks you in before exploding and air-tossing Roxas. It's a more interesting take on the Heartless than the Skater Bomb, so high C tier. The idea for the detonator is just Minute Bomb, but big. And yeah, I have to admit, that's pretty big. Its defense is pretty high and there's no dodging that explosion. A worthy end to the Minute Bomb lineage. High C tier. Unfortunately, the lineage didn't end there. Kingdom Hearts Key introduced several new variants, starting with the Egg Cognito during Easter 2014. I guess the Minute Bomb did look pretty egg-like, but I doubt the developers of Kingdom Hearts 2 could have foreseen the egg-based puns that a simple Heartless design would affect a decade later. C tier. The Shenanigan. Well, it's another Easter edition, and I can't decide if its design is cute or ugly. I can decide on low C tier, though. The mobile remake introduced the huge Shenanigan, one of the laziest Heartless in the series. It uses the exact same sprite as the Shenanigan, just scaled up. D tier. The Eggscapade, and yes I swear these are all real Heartless, is the final form of the Easter evolutionary line. I find it quite ugly, but I can sense a whiff of a hint of charm in the design, so I guess it's another low C tier. The Sparkler has a cute pink cape and damages surrounding enemies upon defeat. If I had more to say about it, I would. C tier. Finally, we have the Cherry Kaboom. It has the same friendly fire explosion as the Sparkler, but its design is way cuter than a simple minute bomb replacement. It can earn the honor of the highest ranking sibling from the Key series, which isn't much of an honor when you consider that it's only going in high C tier. The Volcanic Lord and Blizzard Lord are the heads of a peculiar Heartless family. This royal duo appears as a joint boss battle, and while I think it's regarded as a fairly middle-of-the-road encounter, I came out with a far more favorable impression on my most recent playthrough. There's a decent amount to play around with here, juggling 2 different targets, lingering hazards on the battlefield, breaking into a swarm of smaller Heartless that can restore your resources. The Blizzard Lord can freeze party members, which disables their associated drive forms. I absolutely love the second phase projectiles. The Volcanic Lord summons a straight line of fireballs, which can be nullified with Blizzard, and the Blizzard Lord summons a circle of icicles, which can be nullified with fire. It's one of the best uses of specific magic spells in the game. However, you get a bunch of free damage due to the ridiculous frequency of the reaction commands, so you never get to appreciate all of these interesting combat interactions. Plus, there isn't much to dig into in terms of their design or story significance. It is interesting to see the Lords brought back for XIII and Dark Road, the only Heartless boss not from KH1 to bear that distinction. Altogether, the Volcanic Lord and Blizzard Lord are a decent pair of Heartless with underutilized potential. High B tier. When the Volcanic Lord takes enough damage, it splits apart into Fiery Globes, our next member of the Heartless family. By itself, one Fiery Globe is pretty useless. In a group, every Fiery Globe is pretty useless. The Heartless will occasionally let loose a weak ramming attack, but it mostly just sits and waits to get killed. The Fiery Globe is immune to fire, but that does little to help it on the battlefield. Still, they are very satisfying to take out, and the whole fire and ice thing Agrabah has going on is kinda neat. High C tier. The next Heartless is the Blizzard Element counterpart to the Fiery Globe. It shares the same spawn tendencies and pitiful battle plan, but it differs from its flaming sibling in one key area. Its name is the Icy Cube. They made a Heartless out of an ice cube and called it the Icy Cube. Call it lazy if you want, but this is one of the funniest things to happen in KH2. I love the Icy Cube, and you can't take him away from me. It also benefits from a Daze appearance. Its moveset is greatly fleshed out, the ability to freeze Roxas creates an interesting dynamic, and, most of all, its silly name is visible above the HP bar. B tier for whimsy. The Snowy Crystal is an icy cube that had a little more time in the freezer. It has one new attack, a string of bouncing shockwaves, and it's dangerous close up. If you packed fire magic, it's easily defeated thanks to its staggering 6.6 times weakness to fire damage. The Snowy Crystal is by no means a paragon of enemy design, but I think it's really fun. It's one of the first Heartless I think of when Daze comes to mind. High C tier.
Of course, he's probably a Heartless by now.
If you asked me to name every KH2 Heartless from memory, the Fortune Teller is one of the last ones I'd get, but that's honestly a shame. Its design exudes Agrabah from top to bottom and complements the Luna Bandit nicely. While primarily a magic user, it has a neat physical attack with its Crystal Ball. Both of its spells have engaging counterplay, the ice shots can be deflected back, and the Frozen Verdict move has a reaction command that actually requires a modicum of skill, or at least awareness, to pull off. It even has some strange gameplay synergy between KH2 and Union Cross, using a countdown timer in both appearances. Now that I'm taking the time to appreciate the Fortune Teller, it's clear that it's a Heartless that deserves to be remembered. B tier. Moving on to Halloween Town, we have the Toy Soldier, Guardian of Candy Cane Lane. For a Heartless that only appears in a single room, it has a lot going in its favor. It has 2 distinct forms, the Soldier form, where it fires 2 to 3 shots after standing still, and the Pumpkin form, where it slashes with wicked blades. This makes it a fun opponent since you have to react to which form pops out of the box, and it can even kick its feet out while still inside the box for an extra mix-up. What's more, I can't think of a more perfect way to express the Christmas-Halloween duality of the world. It's also a way better Jack-in-the-Box than the Heartless literally named Jack-in-the-Box. A respectable B tier. The Graveyard is a toy soldier that has been fully corrupted by the spooky season. It sheds the soldier form for a new Graveyard form, which attacks with swirling ghosts, and it retains the other attacks of the original. I like how this Heartless is something of a surprise, since it doesn't appear until the second Halloween Town visit. In fact, it's the only original KH2 Heartless that's introduced in a Disney World revisit, making it feel like the late game encounter that it is. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Like the Rune Master, the Graveyard's model and animations are in the files of Melody of Memory, but it went unused in the final game. Instead, the Christmas Town sages have the large body, which never appeared in the world. A curious removal. In any case, the Graveyard belongs next to its sibling in B tier. Sometimes we need a weak Heartless to fill out the ranks, and the Driller Mole is here to serve. It can lunge its drill body through the air or tunnel underground, but that's about it. It's not cute enough or ugly enough to leave much of an impression once you leave Halloween Town. Interestingly, the mobile games relocated the Driller Mole to Dwarf Woodlands, presumably to complement the dwarf's mining operations. It's also the only Heartless to use its final mix color scheme in the mobile games, but I'm not sure why. C tier. May I talk about Kingdom Hearts Key? Please? Just a little bit? I want to show you the nosy mole. Look at that great Dwarf Woodlands design! It has the same nightcap and buckled robe as the 7 dwarfs. In Japan, it's called the Echu Mole, and its journal entry reads, "This mole is nothing to sneeze at." Yeah, I know it's not really related to the Driller Mole, but it's still a mole-based Heartless native to Dwarf Woodlands, and it's far cuter than the KHUX one. Low B tier. The Pride Lands are next, starting with the Aerial Knocker. As the boxing gloves indicate, its preferred method of attack is punching. It's a fairly standard enemy, like the Pride Lands equivalent of an air soldier, but there's a really good bit of level design here. In the Pride Lands, Sora is stripped from most of his usual toolkit. Dry forms, summons, and most combat abilities are all disabled. To make up for this, every Pride Lands Heartless has a reaction command that can be used against other enemies, effectively adding new moves to Lion Sora's toolkit. The Aerial Knocker comes with Rapid Blow, a series of airborne strikes that can target anyone on the field. The other 2 native Heartless, which we'll get to shortly, have some form of AoE damage on their special reaction commands. I appreciate how the world's RCs are geared towards general combat utility rather than taking down one specific foe. It's a small detail, but one that really speaks to the skill of the dev team. And not to pile all of the tangents in one place, but the Aerial Knocker is another one of the cut Melody of Memory enemies. I believe that its spot was given to the Watcher after it was cut, which is the only out-of-place spawn in the Pride Lands music stages. Interesting history and world design philosophy aside, the Aerial Knocker is still a pretty basic enemy that doesn't command much attention or respect. High C tier. The Aerial Champ is the Cavern of Remembrance version of the Aerial Master. It has the exact same moveset, only without the reaction command since Sora isn't in lion form. While most of these boring recolors are a D tier, I'm giving the Aerial Champ a bit of a boost, since facing a Pride Lands enemy outside of the world isn't something you get outside of the Colosseum. Low C tier. The Living Bone is the first Heartless you see in the Pride Lands, and it sure does set the scene. The design is on point, and the gameplay is nothing to scoff at either. It has some pretty powerful attacks, but you can seize control of its body and run over other Heartless with shockwaves. The finishing RC smashes its head into the ground, which is totally metal. The Living Bone also has great synergy with the Shaman Heartless. The Shaman can ride the beast, either by spawning together or by mounting an existing Living Bone, which powers up all of the Heartless's physical attacks. A mounted Shaman can use 2 of its magic attacks, one of which provokes a powerful reaction command. The Shaman also has a melee scratch and floating mask attack that it uses while solo. Plus, it has a small chance to drop the Shaman's Relic staff when defeated, and I admire that they changed the color of the staff in Final Mix to match the recolor of the Heartless. Anyway, that's a high B tier for the Living Bone and a B tier for the Shaman. The 2FM exclusive Necromancer is nearly identical to the Shaman, as is expected from Cavern of Remembrance reskins. The main difference, other than the lack of a reaction command, is its invincibility during its Mask Rush attack. And boy does it love using it. 90% of the time you won't be able to damage the Necromancer because it's barreling around in an invincible state. It's annoying and I simply do not find it fun to fight. F tier, but not a very passionate F tier. The Strafer is fun. True to their name, the Strafer typically strafes around Sora as it fires its lasers. It's pretty weak. I'd think of it as the soldier of Space Paranoids if there wasn't literally a Space Paranoids version of the soldier. I find the Strafer really cute though. I don't know what about the design speaks to me, but I dig it. Low B tier. The Magnum Loader rolls around and does physical attacks, but I don't really have much to say about its overworld appearance. It only stands out because of its appearance in the Light Cycle minigame. There's a sort of rock, paper, scissors system going on with the different colors. Attack beats charge, shield beats attack, and charge beats shield. The powerful white Magnum Loader can use all 3 techniques, while the yellow, blue, and green variants get 1 apiece. That said, I've never used any button other than charge in this minigame, so the gimmick is more or less just for show. Also, Magnum Loader is either a mistranslation of or purposeful play on the Magna Rotor, a likewise unicycling enemy from the Final Fantasy series with whom the Heartless shares a Japanese name. High C tier. The Devastator joins the ranks of the Battleship and Graveyard as a large and strong endgame Heartless. These tend to do pretty well in the rankings, and for good reason. Their movesets are often more detailed than standard enemies, and they're likely to be more memorable because of the challenge they provide. The Devastator checks all of these boxes. It has two forms, grounded and aerial, sort of like the original Trick Ghost. I think it's neat that the airborne form is the one focused on close combat, while the grounded version owns all of the projectiles. It's just a fun enemy with a fittingly intimidating design. Low A tier. I don't like the Reckless very much. It's an odd choice that the stronger variant has fewer than half as many moves. See, the Reckless is permanently stuck in its aerial form, the less interesting of the two in my opinion. However, due to its relative rarity and some residual goodwill from the Devastator, I'll let the Reckless slide into C tier. On its own merits, the Armored Knight is kind of a whatever Heartless. Its design is basic, but serviceable, and its attacks are also par for the course. There's no way the Armored Knight would escape the low edge of C tier if it wasn't for the Battle of 1000 Heartless. That fight and its surrounding cutscenes elevate the Armored Knight an entire letter grade. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you how cool the KH2 midpoint is. Shedding through dozens of Heartless at a time is very satisfying, though I think the Rising Sun reaction command is a bit too common and powerful in normal combat. Low B tier. I have the exact same feelings about the Watcher. Its design and moveset are alright, but not incredible, and it's largely defined by its role in the Battle of Hollow Bastion. It has a similarly satisfying yet unbalanced reaction command too. It's worth noting that KH2 called the Watcher the surveillance robot, but Days and Melody of Memory stick to Watcher. Low B tier. The Guardian is a larger Watcher that appears in Days. Its claim to fame is Mission 59, where you have to hunt them down to collect Shining Shards, the only mission that has a synthesis material as its goal. However, while the Guardian might have higher stats, it only has a single attack, making it a pretty boring opponent. Low C tier. The Destroyer appears once as the boss of Mission 56, the only day where you fight as a trio. Well, when it's time to face the Destroyer, Shion is already out for the count, so it's just Roxas versus an incredibly large Watcher. Its size is the most noteworthy thing about it, since the attacks are standard fare for the Watcher lineage. The Destroyer might be a mini-boss, but it doesn't do enough to differentiate itself from the weaker members of its clan, so it'll be forgotten before the post-mission cutscene is over. C tier.
He's gonna make one beauty of a Heartless.
There are a large number of Heartless whose sole purpose in life is to provide Sora and his fellow Keyblade bearers with prizes and goodies. In the KH1 rankings, we covered 3 of these special Heartless, the Gift Shadow, Gold Tricholoma, and Prize Blocks, and each of them ranked fairly high. Since KH2 is the real introduction to this archetype, I thought I'd just get them all out of the way now. The progenitor of the Heartless prize trend is the Bulky Vendor, the only Kingdom Hearts gacha I endorse. If you use a reaction command on the Heartless, you can get a bunch of orbs, money, and items, with the rewards being better the less HP the Heartless has. Its health will decrease on its own over time, but the speed at which it jumps around will also increase, so you have to scramble around to catch it if you want the best prize. It also has a special way of spawning in, hiding inside a prop in the room until you expose it. Chasing it down is pretty fun, and the information bar that accompanies its appearance makes the Bulky Vendor feel like a special occasion. It also returns in Days, where Roxas chooses the more straightforward solution of bashing the prizes out of the Bulky Vendor's skull. Low A tier. The Rare Vendor is simply a replacement for the Bulky Vendor from missions 54 onward. It's bigger and drops better prizes, so while I don't think it was exactly a necessary addition, I think it serves as a good visual indicator that things are ramping up now that you've cleared the halfway point of the game. Low B tier. Our next 3 prize Heartless are actually part of a family we already discussed. Hailing from the Minute Bomb lineage, we have the Growth Egg, Prize Egg, and Money Egg, the last of which was added in the mobile remake. In Union Cross, they drop medals that provide resources for level ups, rank ups, or shopping. I don't really have any strong feelings toward these hatchlings, which is to say, they bore me. The designs aren't horrible, but as someone who didn't experience the Union Cross gameplay, they are entirely forgettable. C tier. My sources are telling me that the Growth Egg may or may not be a reference to a recurring Final Fantasy accessory. After careful consideration, I've determined that I do not care, at least not enough to influence the rankings. The next family of prize Heartless begins with the Bag o' Jewels, Bag o' Coins, and Bag o' Coal. I immediately like them better than the Egg Trio on account of having an original design. The singular eyepiece and the stitches going up the side are cute touches. There's some wasted potential here, like making the Bag o' Coal native to the mines in Dwarf Woodlands or something, but there's some theming attempts in Dark Road with the treasure room of the Cave of Wonders. High C tier for the lot of them. The other 2 members of the family, the Bag o' Gifts and Bag o' Points, are going slightly higher for one simple reason: the teeny tiny shadow riding on top. Sometimes that's all you need. Low B tier. It's Popcat time! These prize Heartless made their debut in Kingdom Hearts 3, and I like them. I enjoyed the way they sit still and suddenly leap out, and most importantly, I love the tactile feel of tearing them apart. The feedback from destroying a large group of Popcats and collecting all of the prizes is inordinately satisfying. This only goes for the 4 Popcat variants though. When the defining feature of the Heartless is the fact that they drop prizes, giving the basic Popcat a useless drop set eliminates this satisfaction, leaving you with nothing but a useless combatant. I'm putting the classic Popcat in low C tier, and the Vitality Popcat, Buddy Popcat, Magic Popcat, and Focus Popcat in B tier.
A Heartless commander?
The Illuminator is one of the few instances where Heartless and Disney bosses fight side by side. As per the lore of the film, Barbossa is only vulnerable in his skeleton form when the moonlight shines upon him, and the Illuminator capitalizes on this by enveloping the arena in total darkness, making Barbossa invincible. This is fantastic synergy, but this fascinating concept is completely fumbled in the gameplay. Barbossa disappears when the Illuminator arrives, and the Heartless has no attacks of its own, so the darkness of the arena doesn't actually provide any challenge. All it does is interrupt a pretty decent Barbossa fight with a game of hide-and-seek. It's not even a fun game of hide-and-seek, since you can follow the conspicuous glowing eyes to find a pitifully small health bar at your destination. I usually love Heartless that interact with their environment, especially in a game filled with flat, empty arenas, but the Illuminator is one of the most worthless enemies in the series. At its core, the Illuminator is nothing but wasted potential and squandered synergy. Regrettably, F tier. If you squint, you could say that the Prison Keeper also fights side by side with Disney villains, but that'd be a curious way of describing involuntary imprisonment. The Heartless swallows Lock, Shock, or Barrel, which determines which attacks it has access to. At low HP, it will swallow all 3 Troublemakers and use all attacks at random. This sounds like the makings of a great fight, but in practice, it's a forgettable mash X until it's over encounter. It's a shame, but it might just be the least memorable boss in the game. The Prison Keeper's design has that stitched-together Halloween Town flair, but unlike my beloved Chimera, it doesn't really grab me as anything special. I can't place this boss any higher than high C tier. Is the Experiment a Heartless? The short version is no, but I'm ranking it anyway. The long version is that, on one side, Gemini's Journal and the Ultimania don't consider it a Heartless, it doesn't release a heart when defeated, and is explicitly said to have not had a heart. The pause menu calls it an artificial Heartless, which could be argued either way. And on the other side, the Experiment drops Wisdom Form EXP, and we can't forget the ultimate source of truth, the Kingdom Hearts trading card game, which indeed considers the Experiment a Heartless. In my opinion, it isn't a true Heartless, but an artificial facsimile of Heartless is still Heartless enough to be included on this tier list. As for where it ranks, it's going somewhere in the middle. I'll leave it to regular Pat to wax poetic about the thematic parallels between the Experiment's longing for a heart and the organization's own mission, since while I agree there's some meat on that bone, it's never a thread I found particularly engaging on my own. Combat-wise, the Experiment can split up its body parts like a messed up guard armor. It has a decent variety of attacks, which can get a bit annoying but never too frustrating. All in all, the Experiment is a fine world-end encounter and has a more central role in the Halloween Town narrative than most true Heartless bosses. High B tier. The Storm Rider has the dubious honor of being the best boss in the Land of Dragons. Granted, its competition is a battle with a half-hearted gimmick and a battle that you only half complete, but it's still a highlight of the world. The things I like about it: the design, both original and final mix, the incorporation of vertical movement with mobility-focused reaction commands, the variety of attacks, and one of the coolest-looking RCs in the game. This is dragged down by the boring flat arena and the way this boss drags on for far longer than it has any right to. It's interesting, but not that interesting. Still, it tries to shake up the flow by making you ride on its back to deal any real damage, and it's kinda sorta involved in the story if you manage to stay awake for any of the Land of Dragons cutscenes. High B tier. Out of all of the Disney World revisits, the Grim Reaper is the Heartless that makes the best finale. The main gimmick of the fight is that the Grim Reaper is invincible while it holds any of the cursed medallions, and you have to hit the Heartless with magic to steal back the treasure. This is what all Disney World should aspire to in terms of integrating the source material. It perfectly complements the lore of the Pirates franchise while also being interesting from a mechanical standpoint. Not many encounters explicitly force you to cast magic. What's more, if you were paying attention to the undead pirate fights, you'd quickly realize that the Grim Reaper has the same special debuffs when hit with spells, such as freezing under Blizzard. The fight also respects your time. Instead of waiting around for the excruciating MB charge timer, you can hit the Grim Reaper to get your spells back faster. One of the other unique things about the Grim Reaper is that you fight it twice. The first battle is an incredibly one-sided beatdown that feels pretty pointless in the moment. In the true fight, the Grim Reaper has some pretty intimidating attacks, but will enter its earlier pushover form once you rob it of the golden coins. All in all, the Grim Reaper is a fun fight with an inspired, unobtrusive gimmick and stellar Disney integration. High A tier. The Groundshaker is perhaps the most cinematic boss outside of the final Xemnas Gauntlet. The reaction commands to dodge the boss's rampage are the most memorable part of the fight, and the mashing segment makes it feel at least a tad more skillful than other reaction command cutscene sequences in the game. The design of the Heartless riding the beast is also pretty neat, and I like the way it mirrors the Shaman in Living Bone. My main issue with the fight is that it takes way too long. The The Lion form combat simply isn't interesting enough to justify this long fight, and the Groundshaker's moveset isn't particularly fantastic either. However, I do like the opportunity to take on a truly gargantuan foe, so the Groundshaker can slide into high B tier. I hate that Scar is on this list. He harnesses the power of darkness, sure, but by all accounts he shouldn't be Heartless. The only reason Scar is here is because of a single line by Pete. It's not a translation error either, since Japanese Pete makes the same claim. But it doesn't really make sense in the lore of the series. He isn't grouped with the Heartless in Jiminy's journal. The Kingdom Hearts 2 Ultimania doesn't classify Scar as a Heartless, nor do the third-party English guidebooks. I even went into the game files to check, and I can confirm that Scar has the same classification as the Disney and Final Fantasy bosses, not the Heartless or Heartless boss ID. This means that if you were to somehow defeat him in Wisdom form, you would not earn experience points for defeating a Heartless. In short, every source besides the grotesque mouth of Lion Pete agrees that Scar isn't a Heartless. I choose to believe that Pete is lying or mistaken, since he's not exactly the sharpest command in the deck. In any case, Scar has absolutely no business being called a Heartless. For that, and the headache of this whole situation, Scar lands an honorary spot in double F tier.
It's not like other Heartless.
Kingdom Hearts Final Mix introduced several rare Heartless with special gimmicks, and KH2 Final Mix answered with Mushroom 13. Each mushroom references one of the members of Organization 13 and challenges Sora to a minigame. Number 1 is the Xemnas Room, and not to spoil the rest of the rankings, but this is far and away my favorite of the bunch. The reason is reaction commands. In many places in KH2, I believe the reaction command system is poorly implemented. This is epitomized by the Twilight Thorn, an atmospheric and challenging fight marred by a 40-second cutscene in the middle of the action. Yes, the visuals are cool, but the gameplay design is baffling. You can just mash triangle and win 100% of the time. I can't even call it a quick time event when there's no timing involved. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything because performing the takedown requires no skill whatsoever. It's an empty spectacle. Compare this to the first Xemnas battle, which showcases reaction commands at their best. If you just mash triangle after initiating the showdown, you'll get the Clash reaction command, which does nothing except end the sequence. But if you wait half a second and time your reaction command, you can get Breakthrough, which is a decently powerful attack. And if you are really confident in your timing, you have a quarter of a second to hit finish, which instantly reduces Xemnas' HP to 1. But if you miss, you get walloped by Xemnas' strongest attack. Here, the reaction commands contribute to the challenge of the fight and add an in-the-moment risk versus reward decision. I can play it safe and prolong the battle, or I can risk a fatal blow by attempting the quick kill. If I hit the finish RC, I feel like I earned the damage, unlike the Twilight Thorn's just for show button prompts. Though, the Thorn has some redemption with Reversal, one of the best RCs in the game, since it gives an interesting option without a free win. In general, reaction commands are at their best when they require strict timing or precise positioning. This is why Mushroom 13 number 1 is the highlight of the post-game. You need to hit the mushroom 99 times in 30 seconds, but it's invincible until you confuse it with a reaction command. You can perform the familiar Reversal RC to dash behind it, but the Heartless will respond with a reversal of its own. If you mash the reaction command prompt as quick as possible, you'll repeat this sliding dance several times and confuse the mushroom after maybe 4 or 5 tries. But if you hold your button press until the prompt changes to quick slide, you can instantly open it up to damage. The way to win the battle is to properly time your reaction commands, but missing the prompt comes with a penalty, since the mushroom will attack Sora and cost precious time. Much like the Xemnas battle in the same arena, the reaction commands in the Mushroom number 1 fight reward skillful execution and are more satisfying because of it. This gimmick encounter has better RC implementation than the majority of actual bosses. The Superior's mushroom is indeed superior, low A tier. Mushroom number 2 is Xigbar's, another one of my favorites. The goal is to dodge and reflect the mushroom's ranged attacks. It's not often that KH2 asks you to go on the defensive, and the idea of blocking projectiles complements the established game flow instead of supplanting it with a poorly thought out gimmick. You can block the shots with Reflect magic well enough, though I always enjoy jumping around with Final Form and letting the passive Keyblade spins do all the work. High B tier. Next in line is Zaldin's Mushroom number 3. You have to chase it around the site of Zaldin's death to gather the prizes it drops. Using Wisdom Form's Quick Run to pick up an entire line of prizes is pretty satisfying. As long as you have a few copies of Draw, the encounter isn't too difficult, so number 3 doesn't overstay its welcome. Low B tier. Mushroom number 4 is completely useless. The goal is to eliminate as many clones as possible without getting hit, which is fine in concept, but boring in practice. I got a perfect score just by walking in a circle and mashing X in Wisdom Form. Then I realized I forgot to hit record, so I did it again. And it turns out that footage was corrupted, so I did it a third time. I was able to get 3 perfect scores in a row with basically no effort. I didn't even have to move the control stick once I got a circle going. Any fun you might get out of this encounter is swiftly diminishing, but I guess it is somewhat satisfying to mow down 100 mushrooms. C tier. Mushroom number 5 takes after its organization member, offering a gimmick as interesting as Lexius's personality. It lies still and does nothing. There's something cathartic about just wailing on the mushroom trying to take down its HP. When the game first becomes available, it's pretty much impossible, but by the end game you can simply shred through it in final form. This mushroom is surprisingly fun for an enemy that doesn't fight back. Low B tier. The XIII shroom, number 6, was one of my favorites on my casual playthrough. The goal is to eliminate the clones as quickly as possible. The Heartless appear in formations that match different magic spells, and I had a lot of fun trying to figure out the pattern. I had slightly less fun when I returned with final form and tore through everything without any thought, but breaking the game is rewarding in its own right. It's another mushroom that plays with the main combat mechanics instead of against them. Low B tier. Number 7 is boring. You're supposed to kill it without touching it, since the mushroom will send you flying on contact, but Reflect Magic just trivializes the whole encounter. I don't feel clever or satisfied from beating it, just kind of annoyed, but it isn't actively bad. Low C tier. Axel is the most popular villain in Organization 13, but his mushroom is undoubtedly the least popular of the fungal family. There are few things in Kingdom Hearts that I find less fun than trying to keep this mushroom airborne. KH1's Rare Truffle was annoying, but number 8 is on another level. It drops like a ball of Shielite and is always perfectly out of reach, and when it falls, it feels bad. Regardless of if you're using Berserk Charge strategies, Wisdom Form, or another method, this mushroom is an infuriating time sink, and the score requirement to satisfy it is unreasonably high. We already have Grandstander, an actually fun version of this concept. There's nothing redeeming about this mushroom, and the game would be better off without it. Double F tier. To say that mushroom number 9 is better than number 8 is like saying a bullet to the shin is better than a bullet to the chest. Maybe, but I don't think you should be subjected to either when trying to play a Disney game on your PlayStation 2. Demyx's mushroom asks you to keep the dance going with constant attacks, and it's another miserable encounter. The feedback on how long the mushroom has until it stops spinning is poor, and much like number 8, losing feels punishing and demoralizing. I know my hatred for this mushroom isn't nearly as universal as the distaste for the one at the Mysterious Tower, but I can find no happiness in this minigame. F tier. Remember the Black Ballad? Well, mushroom number 10 does. It's another take on the shell game, track the correct Heartless among the 5 moving clones. It's simple and it's satisfying. The game of skill is also a great fit for Luxord's representative in the Mushroom 13. B tier. Sorry Marluxia, but I don't much care for your minigame. You have to deplete the hit counter above the mushroom's head as quickly as possible, but I've always found this fight more annoying than engaging. It's not putrid like numbers 8 or 9, but number 11 still feels like it needs more time in the oven. D tier. Mushroom number 12 is just kinda there. It's another destroy all the clones missions, this one on a timer, and Wisdom Form is once again the answer. I appreciate the challenge provided by the environmental obstacles when compared to the flat arenas of every other mushroom. Number 12 is a perfectly serviceable minigame, but not one I'm dying to return to. High C tier. Finally, we have mushroom number 13. There's no minigame here, Roxas' counterpart simply bestows a crown and keyblade upon he who completes all 12 other mushrooms. It's cute, sure, but this is the monster who forced us to juggle Axel's mushroom 85 times before it would appear, so it's not getting off the hook that easily. High C tier. Before I reveal the final tier list, it's time for a quiz. Out of every original KH2 Heartless, only 2 of them were important enough to receive medals in Union Cross. Which ones? The answers are the Graveyard and, as if to rub salt on the wound, the Trick Ghost. Both medals were introduced in October 2019, which is all the more baffling considering the Union Cross Trick Ghost Heartless was introduced in June of that same year. Unbelievable. Also before the big reveal, I want to update 3 rankings from previous videos. The Wyvern, Luna Bandit, and Hammerframe are all going up 1 tier. I've regained my whimsy and found more love for these designs in the past year. As I said at the start of part 1, the Heartless of Kingdom Hearts 2 are an odd breed. They often find themselves living in the shadows of the nobodies. Whereas KH1 had a slew of late-game Heartless in S and A tier, in KH2 these strange and menacing designs are reserved for the nobodies, the new mysterious threat. This leaves the KH2 Heartless without a strong contingent of late-game designs. As a side effect of this trend, there are fewer abstract designs, since those all went to the organization's underlings. This is a double-edged sword. It resulted in many generic-feeling enemies like the Armored Knight or Bad Dog, while also giving way to enemies that draw more inspiration from the Disney side of things, like the Nightwalker and Toy Soldier. The Heartless families of KH2 also teach us that good designs can suffer from overuse. The Possessor was turned from an interesting boss concept to a misky mosquito thanks to its many appearances in Days and Key, while the novel design of the Gummy Hammer was wrought disposable by its hundreds of spawns. On the flip side, mechanically simple Heartless can be made to feel more special if they are deployed sparingly, like the Storm Bomb or Crawler. If we break down the tier list by game of origin, you can see that the Kingdom Hearts 2 originals did pretty well. The majority of its Heartless fall on B tier or higher, and the failing grades are mostly due to final mix. As for the future games that had KH2 derivatives, Days proved middling, but every once in a while hit on a truly brilliant idea. Kingdom Hearts Key had a similar strategy of taking as many shots as possible, but they didn't really start hitting until the mobile remake, and even then Union Cross had a pretty low batting average. I suppose the true winners are Chain of Memories and Dark Road, since a sample size I can count on my fingers makes it pretty easy to keep a high ranking average. In my opinion, the Heartless of Kingdom Hearts 2 never reached the highs of the original game. My list reflects this. Kingdom Hearts had 26 enemies in the S and A tiers, while KH2 scrounged up 7. However, it's still a respectable outing. Out of the remaining Heartless, about half of them landed in B tier, and Kingdom Hearts 2 shines clearly above Days in the Key Saga thus far. Notably, the average rank for KH2 originals far surpassed the score of KH2 designs based on KH1 Heartless. As we move on to future games, it will be interesting to see if that trend continues. Will fresh designs rank higher than new children of existing Heartless families, or are the low-ranking Days and Key descendants indicative of a deeper-rooted problem? Until then, though, let's enjoy one final pass through the Kingdom Hearts 2 tier list.